Hello, it's Crystal Watson again with Hildegard Poplaw's Theory of Interpersonal Relations, focusing on theory evaluation. During the theory evaluation, we're going to look at how clarity, simplicity, generality, and empirical precision represents this theory. There are two types of clarity, and I chose structural clarity. Structural clarity looks at the logical relationships among concepts and how these concepts are consistent with the relationships. So I have communication, health, and environment, and I feel that these three concepts correlate with the three phases, which are orientation, working, and termination phase. I have a visual here for you. In the center, we have nursing, and the main concept is communication. And as you can see with the arrows, communication goes both ways, person being the nurse and person being the patient. If you focus on person nurse, you see that health is encompassed in this circle, as well as under person being the patient. And then I'll look at the whole circle, the outline, the biggest outline, and this is our environment. So I think that this is a good representation of how communication, health, and environment are correlated with this theory. Simplicity. This is the parsimony, the ability to convey maximal information with minimal concepts, proposition, and interrelationships. I think that this theory is very straightforward. It's not confusing when used correctly. You just have to follow the steps, and I think that it requires three concepts, one for each step. First phase using communication, the second using health, and the third using your environment. Next we have generality. High generality, I think, is what this theory relates to. It's very abstract. You can use it in a variety of instances. It was based for psychiatric nursing. However, in my examples, I've used it for inpatient nursing, but I do think that you could use it in any aspect of nursing. But two I'd like to focus on more would be home health. Home health nurses can they look at the communication that the patient provides, set clear goals, and see how those goals are used if they follow through with the goals in the termination phase. Rehabilitation centers such as physical rehab, being short-term or long-term rehab, and addiction centers. I think addiction centers, this could correlate with helping form a plan and keeping that plan through the communication, the first part, the first phase, second phase being the working phase where these maybe the addicts are working on the goals, and then the termination phase when they complete those goals and stay clean. Empirical precision. These are concepts grounded in observable reality. During the three phases of theory, it is tested by direct observation. I feel this theory is something that you can see and do. It's not something that you have to visualize. This can give you real hard evidence in the end. Phase one, what are we observed? Was the communication effective? Did the patient explain needs, wants, desires, and barriers to reach goals? You can observe this by listening, observe it by seeing, write down what their communication is, if they need to write it or you need to hear it. Phase 2, were clear roles defined through communication? Did the nurse provide safe environment and promote health? In Phase 3, termination phase, did the patient nurse achieve the goal? Verbalization of effectiveness should be stated. Did the health improve? Were the changes made to the environment? And I started thinking about that, and during this theory, sometimes the goals and what you set your desire to be at the end may not be what you wanted it to be, and then you need to start over, which is okay. Sometimes where our goals are set, we maybe aim too high or something happens and we have to backtrack, and that's okay. We just start over with the phase, and that's why this is so consistent. It's because you just follow those steps and just reboot, redo. Empirical adequacy, has high testability, like I just said. If you follow the phases won't change if you do what the phases say. However, the commitment by each individual may change. So your test may be positive in the end or maybe negative, but the test still remains the same. Can other scientists verify observable relationships? Yes. I think that this theory can be used outside of just nursing. Like I said, it was designed for more of a psych situation, psych patient. So I think that psychiatrists could use this in clinical settings. If we're having sessions where a patient's coming in, I try to envision that first initial encounter is the patient talking, their feelings, what they need from this therapist, and then in the working phase, they're working on ways to improve the situation. Maybe it is, maybe depression, so they're both are working on a clear goal. And then the termination phase, when the psychiatrist has helped this person with these coping mechanisms be free of whatever ailment that they have. I also think that we could relate this to social work. I'll use like a DSS case, for example. Orientation phase being that social worker going out to a resident or having just a verbal communication with individuals, having that individual tell their concerns and needs and wants, and the social worker coming up with a plan to help these individuals kind of come up with a plan to get on the right track. And then the termination phase being that the plan was successful and the DSS case is closed. And then if I want to stretch it just a little bit, going into school teachers, let's say at the beginning of the year, you have new students come in and your class sets communication. You do communication of what the students need and wants and fears, maybe, and their goals. And then the working phase is the school year, and the termination phase, which would be the end of the year. The requirements were met, and fears were overcome, and achievements were made, and you're on to the next grade. Meta paradigm. This is a great example of how the meta paradigm correlates with her theory. This is a middle range theory. Middle range theories are maybe developed using either an inductive or deductive approach. And then unlike meta theories or conceptual models, it can be optimized into a measurable form. When forming a theory using inductive methods, individual observations are used as the basics. Based on several individual observations, conclusions may be drawn and a theory is constructed. When forming a theory using deductive methods, general conformity rules are used as a starting point, divided into smaller units, and rendered into concrete form. Therefore, the deduction process progresses from general to individual levels. Middle range theory is very descriptive, concrete, operational concepts are formed. There's explanatory. They are specific in relationships between two or more concepts, which I have 3, so that checks out. Predictive, envisioning relationships between the two concepts. Operationalized, yes, it's a set 1, 2, 3 step. Can be applied to many situations, which we covered that. And oriented outcomes are important for patients, not merely describe what nurses do. I wanted to go ahead and throw this slide into just the check marks again, just to say that, we are using the clinical nursing education in this theory. We are facilitating learning, we're demonstrating effective interpersonal communication and collaborative professional relationships. We're applying all our expertise, and we're implementing these effective clinical and assessment evaluation strategies. Thanks for listening.